The August evening hangs thick with heat as twilight bleeds across the London suburbs, casting long shadows through the windows of a house that will soon become infamous. Inside, the home of Gabriel and Alicia Berenson breathes with the quiet rhythm of domestic tranquility until it doesn't. The artist's studio, usually alive with the chaos of creation, stands eerily still. Canvases lean against walls like silent witnesses, their painted faces turned away from what is about to unfold. The scent of oil paint and turpentine mingles with something else, something metallic that shouldn't belong in this sanctuary of art and love. Alicia Berenson moves through her home with the fluid grace of someone who has walked these halls for years, yet tonight there's something different. In her step, something deliberate and final. Her hands, usually stained with the rainbow of her craft, are clean, almost unnaturally so. The silence that will define her future has not yet begun, but it lurks in the corners of the house like a living thing, waiting to consume her voice. Forever, the grandfather clock in the hallway ticks with mechanical precision, each second falling away like drops of blood, marking time until the moment that will shatter everything. Gabriel Berenson sits in his favorite chair, unaware that these are his final moments. The successful fashion photographer appears relaxed, perhaps reviewing contact sheets or simply enjoying the evening's quiet. His camera equipment, scattered nearby, tells the story of a life dedicated to capturing beauty, freezing moments in time. Ironically, he cannot see the darkness approaching. The house holds its breath as if sensing the violence that will soon stain its walls and embed itself in its very foundation. When the first gunshot tears through the silence, it echoes like thunder in a clear sky. Sudden, shocking, impossible. The second shot follows before the echo of the first has died, and then there is only silence. A silence so profound it seems to devour sound itself. The neighbors will later say they heard nothing unusual, but perhaps silence itself was the most unusual sound of all. In the aftermath, as Gabriel's life ebbs away across the kitchen floor, Alicia stands motionless, the smoking gun still warm in her hand, her eyes already beginning their retreat into a place where words cannot follow. The police arrive to find a scene that defies easy explanation. A successful, seemingly happy couple torn apart by violence that appears to have no motive. Alicia, covered in her husband's blood, offers no resistance, no explanation, no words at all. She has crossed a threshold from which there is no return, entering a realm of absolute silence that will become both her prison and her protection. The house, once filled with laughter and creativity, now bears witness to a mystery that will consume everyone who dares to seek its solution. As the investigation begins and the media descends like vultures, one question echoes through every room: why? 6 years pass like a slow hemorrhage of time, each day adding another layer to the mystery that has crystallized around Alicia Berenson's silence. The Grove, a secure forensic unit tucked away in North London, has become her world, a place where broken minds are supposedly mended, though some remain stubbornly, defiantly shattered. Within its sterile walls, Alicia has transformed from a celebrated artist into something else entirely, a living enigma wrapped in pharmaceutical fog and institutional routine. Her silence has become legendary among the staff, a challenge that has broken more than one ambitious therapist who believed they could crack the code of her muteness. Theo Faber arrives at the Grove carrying more than just his credentials and case files. His obsession with Alicia Berenson began the moment he read about the murder in the newspapers, but it has grown into something deeper, more personal, more dangerous than professional curiosity. He tells himself he's here to help, to break through where others have failed, but the truth writhes beneath his noble intentions like a serpent in his chest. His own past, his own secrets, his own fractured relationship with his wife Kathy, all seem somehow connected to this silent woman who refuses to speak her truth. As he walks through the Grove's corridors for the first time, his footsteps echo with the weight of destiny. The other patients at the Grove exist in various states of psychological distress, their own traumas and delusions creating a symphony of madness that serves as background noise to Alicia's absolute quiet. Some scream, others whisper to invisible companions, but Alicia sits in her art therapy sessions like a statue, her hands moving across paper and canvas with the same mechanical precision that once created masterpieces. Her artwork has changed. Since the murder, darker, more abstract, filled with shadowy figures and cryptic symbols that seem to hint at memories too painful to voice. The staff watches her create these disturbing images, searching for clues in every brushstroke. But Alicia gives nothing away. Dr. Diomedes, the Grove's chief psychotherapist, welcomes Theo with a mixture of hope and warning. Too many have tried and failed to reach Alicia Berenson. The woman has become something of a white whale for the psychiatric community, a case that could make a career or destroy it entirely. Her file is thick with failed attempts, abandoned theories, and frustrated notes from therapists who eventually transferred away, defeated by her impenetrable silence. Yet something in Theo's intensity gives Diomedes pause. This new therapist carries himself with the focused determination of a man on a mission. And missions, Diomedes knows from experience, can be dangerous things in a place like the Grove. As Theo settles into his new role, he begins to study Alicia with the intensity of a scholar deciphering ancient texts. Every gesture, every glance, every subtle shift in her posture becomes significant. He reviews her case file obsessively, memorizing every detail of the night Gabriel died, every failed therapeutic intervention, every medication trial that has left her docile but still silent. The painting she created after the murder, a self-portrait titled Alcestis after the Greek mythological figure who chose death over life, haunts his dreams. In it, Alicia has depicted herself tied to a tree, her mouth open in what might be a scream or might be an expression of ecstasy. The ambiguity tortures him, as it was meant to. Everything about Alicia Berenson seems designed to torment those who seek to understand her. And Theo is walking willingly into her web. 6 years pass, like a slow hemorrhage of time, each day adding another layer to the mystery that has crystallized around Alicia Berenson's silence. The Grove, a secure forensic unit tucked away in North London, has become her world, a place where broken minds are supposedly mended, though some remain stubbornly, defiantly shattered. Within its sterile walls, Alicia has transformed from a celebrated artist into something else entirely, a living enigma wrapped in pharmaceutical fog and institutional routine. Her silence has become legendary among the staff, a challenge that has broken more than one ambitious therapist who believed they could crack the code of her muteness. Theo Faber arrives at the Grove carrying more than just his credentials and case files. His obsession with Alicia Berenson began the moment he read about the murder in the newspapers, but it has grown into something deeper, more personal, more dangerous than professional curiosity. He tells himself he's here to help, to break through where others have failed. But the truth writhes beneath his noble intentions like a serpent in his chest. His own past, his own secrets, his own fractured relationship with his wife Kathy, all seem somehow connected to this silent woman who refuses to speak her truth. As he walks through the Grove's corridors for the first time, his footsteps echo with the weight of destiny. The other patients at the Grove exist in various states of psychological distress, their own traumas and delusions creating a symphony of madness that serves as background noise to Alicia's absolute quiet. Some scream, others whisper to invisible companions, but Alicia sits in her art therapy sessions like a statue, her hands moving across paper and canvas with the same mechanical precision that once created masterpieces. Her artwork has changed. Since the murder, darker, more abstract, filled with shadowy figures and cryptic symbols that seem to hint at memories too painful to voice. The staff watches her create these disturbing images, searching for clues in every brushstroke. But Alicia gives nothing away. Dr. Diomedes, the Grove's chief psychotherapist, welcomes Theo with a mixture of hope and warning. Too many have tried and failed to reach Alicia Berenson. The woman has become something of a white whale for the psychiatric community, a case that could make a career or destroy it entirely. Her file is thick with failed attempts, abandoned theories, and frustrated notes from therapists who eventually transferred away, defeated by her impenetrable silence. Yet something in Theo's intensity gives Diomedes pause. This new therapist carries himself with the focused determination of a man on a mission. And missions, Diomedes knows from experience, can be dangerous things in a place like the Grove. As Theo settles into his new role, he begins to study Alicia with the intensity of a scholar deciphering ancient texts. Every gesture, every glance, every subtle shift in her posture becomes significant. He reviews her case file obsessively, memorizing every detail of the night Gabriel died, every failed therapeutic intervention, every medication trial that has left her docile but still silent. The painting she created after the murder, a self-portrait titled Alcestis, after the Greek mythological figure who chose death over life, haunts his dreams. In it, Alicia has depicted herself tied to a tree, her mouth open in what might be a scream or might be an expression of ecstasy. The ambiguity tortures him, as it was meant to. Everything about Alicia Berenson seems designed to torment those who seek to understand her, and Theo is walking willingly into her web. The first therapy session unfolds like a carefully choreographed dance between predator and prey. Though it remains unclear who is which, Alicia sits in the sterile therapy room with the same statuesque composure she has maintained for 6 years, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on some invisible point beyond Theo's shoulder. The silence between them is not merely an absence of sound, it is a living thing, pulsing with tension and unspoken secrets. Theo speaks to fill the void, his words bouncing off her like stones thrown into a deep well, disappearing without echo or acknowledgement. Yet he senses something stirring beneath her placid surface, a flicker of recognition that tells him she hears him, processes him, judges him. The Grove's daily routine becomes Theo's new reality. As he immerses himself deeper into Alicia's world, he observes her during group activities, watches her push food around her plate in the dining hall, studies the way she moves through the corridors like a ghost haunting familiar territory. Other patients try to engage with her, some with curiosity, others with the desperate need of the mentally ill to connect with anyone who might understand their pain. But Alicia remains untouchable, wrapped in her silence like armor. The staff has given up trying to reach her, treating her more like a dangerous artifact than a human being capable of healing. Theo's investigation into Alicia's past becomes an obsession that consumes his waking hours and infiltrates his dreams. He drives to her old neighborhood, walks past the house where Gabriel died, now sold and occupied by a family blissfully unaware of its bloody history. He visits Gabriel's former colleagues, Alicia's art dealers, anyone who might offer insight into what drove a seemingly loving wife to murder her husband in cold blood. Each conversation reveals another piece of the puzzle, but the pieces don't fit together in any way that makes sense. Friends describe the couple as devoted, their marriage as solid, their future as bright. Yet something festered beneath that perfect surface, something dark enough to explode into violence. The painting Alcestis becomes Theo's North Star, a cryptic message from Alicia that he believes contains the key to her silence. He researches the mythological figure obsessively, Alcestis, who volunteered to die in place of her husband, only to be rescued from death by Hercules. The parallels to Alicia's situation seem intentional, but they raise more questions than they answer. Did she see herself as dying in Gabriel's place? Was the murder an act of sacrifice rather than violence? The painting's disturbing imagery, Alicia, bound and helpless, yet somehow transcendent, suggests layers of meaning that torment Theo with their opacity. As weeks turn into months, Theo's home life begins to deteriorate under the weight of his obsession. His wife Kathy watches him with growing concern and frustration as he becomes increasingly distant, consumed by thoughts of another woman. Their conversations grow stilted, their intimacy strained by the ghost of Alicia Berenson that now haunts their marriage. Kathy's accusations of neglect and emotional absence cut deep because they are true, but Theo cannot explain the compulsion that drives him to unlock Alicia's secrets. Something about her case resonates in the deepest chambers of his psyche, awakening memories and fears he has spent years trying to suppress. The other staff at the Grove begin to notice Theo's unusual dedication to his silent patient. Some express concern, others whisper gossip, but all recognize that something beyond professional interest drives his relentless pursuit of Alicia's truth. Dr. Diomedes watches with the careful attention of someone who has seen promising careers destroyed by cases that become too personal. He issues subtle warnings wrapped in collegial advice, reminding Theo that some patients are beyond saving some silence is too profound to break. But Theo's determination only grows stronger with each failed session. Each moment Alicia refuses to acknowledge his presence. Each night he lies awake wondering what secrets hide. Behind her impassive face, the breakthrough comes not through words, but through art, as Alicia's paintings begin to shift and change under Theo's influence. Her latest work shows disturbing evolution faces emerging from abstract swirls of color, eyes that seem to follow observers around the room, landscapes that morph between beauty and nightmare depending on the angle of view. The art therapy instructor notices the change first, how Alicia's brush strokes have become more agitated, more purposeful, as if she's trying to paint her way out of silence. Each canvas becomes a window into her psyche, revealing fragments of memory and emotion that she refuses to voice. Theo studies these works like sacred texts, searching for hidden meanings in every shade and shadow. The other patients at the Grove begin to respond differently to Alicia's presence, as if her awakening artistic energy has disturbed some delicate ecosystem within the facility. Jean Felix, a patient prone to violent outbursts, becomes inexplicably calm around her, while others grow agitated in ways that puzzle the staff. It's as though Alicia's silence has been holding something back, and now that barrier is beginning to crack. Strange incidents occur. Patients found standing outside her room at night, seemingly drawn by forces they cannot explain. The facility's atmosphere grows heavy with anticipation, like the air before a thunderstorm. Theo's research into Gabriel's death takes on new urgency as he uncovers inconsistencies. In the original investigation, the timeline doesn't quite align. Witness statements contain subtle contradictions, and forensic evidence raises questions that were never adequately addressed. The police, eager to close a case with a clear perpetrator who offered no defense, had overlooked details that now seem significant. Phone records show calls made that evening that were never fully investigated. Gabriel's behavior in the weeks before his death, according to friends, had been erratic, secretive, as if he was hiding something significant. The perfect marriage that everyone described begins to look more like a carefully constructed facade. The revelation comes through an unexpected source. Max, Alicia's brother-in-law, who appears at the Grove one afternoon with information he claims he couldn't share before. His demeanor is that of a man carrying a burden too heavy to bear alone any longer. He speaks of Gabriel's recent changes, his paranoia about being followed, his suspicious phone calls and unexplained absences. Most disturbing is Max's account of Gabriel's final week, during which he seemed terrified of something or someone, jumping at shadows and constantly checking locks. This was not the confident, successful photographer the public had mourned, but a man running from something that eventually caught up with him. The diary emerges from Gabriel's belongings, a leather-bound journal that somehow escaped the initial investigation scrutiny, hidden in his photography equipment case. It contains entries that paint a very different picture of the man who died and the marriage that ended in murder. Gabriel's words reveal paranoia, guilt, and fear in equal measure. He writes of being watched, of past mistakes coming back to haunt him, of secrets that could destroy everything he had built. The final entries speak of a plan, a way to end the nightmare that his life had become, but the specifics remain maddeningly vague. What becomes clear is that Gabriel Berenson was not the victim of random violence or marital discord. He was a man being hunted. As Theo absorbs this new information, he begins to see Alicia's silence in a different light. Perhaps it was not the result of guilt or trauma, but of protection of herself or others from truths too dangerous to speak. The painting Alcestis takes on new meaning when viewed through this lens. In the myth, Alcestis chose death to save her husband, but what if Alicia's version was different? What if she chose silence to save someone else? The bound figure in the painting suddenly looks less like a victim and more like a guardian, sacrificing her voice to keep deadly secrets buried. Theo realizes he may not be trying to cure a madwoman, but to break a guardian who is protecting something far more valuable than her own freedom. The walls between Theo's professional and personal life crumble as his investigation leads him down increasingly dangerous paths. His marriage to Kathy deteriorates beyond repair as she confronts him about his obsession with Alicia, her voice breaking with the pain of abandonment and betrayal. The irony is not lost on him in trying to understand one woman's silence. He has created silence in his own relationship, a cold distance that grows wider with each passing day. Kathy's tears and accusations fall on deaf ears as Theo finds himself unable to explain the compulsion that drives him. Unable to step back from the precipice he approaches with each revelation about Gabriel's death. The discovery of Paul Rose changes everything. Gabriel's former colleague, a photographer who disappeared shortly after the murder, had been presumed to have left London for work abroad. But Theo's persistent digging reveals a darker truth. Paul Rose died in a car accident just 3 days after Gabriel's murder, his death barely reported in local papers. Dismissed as a tragic coincidence. The timing is too convenient, the circumstances too suspicious to ignore. Phone records show multiple calls between Paul and Gabriel in the days before the murder. Conversations that lasted hours and were never explained to investigators. Whatever secret Gabriel was carrying, Paul Rose had been part of it, and now both men were dead. Alicia's behavior in therapy sessions begins to shift in subtle but significant ways. While she maintains her vow of silence, her body language speaks volumes to those trained to read such signs. She becomes more agitated when certain topics are broached, her hands clenching and unclenching when Theo mentions Gabriel's photography, work, or his final weeks. Most telling is her reaction to Paul Rose's name, a barely perceptible flinch. That confirms what Theo has begun to suspect. She knows exactly why her husband died, and she knows she cannot speak that truth without destroying herself or others. Her silence is not madness but strategy, not breakdown but protection. The photographs hidden in Gabriel's studio tell a story that makes Theo's blood run cold. Discovered in a secret compartment behind a false wall, they show scenes that were never meant to be captured, moments of vulnerability and shame that could destroy lives and careers. The subjects are recognizable politicians, celebrities, business leaders caught in compromising positions that suggest blackmail rather than artistic expression. Gabriel had been using his access and trusted reputation to gather evidence that could topple powerful people, and someone had finally decided to stop him. The murder was not a crime of passion, but an execution, carefully planned and brutally carried out. The connection to Theo's own life strikes him like a physical blow. When he recognizes one of the faces in the photographs, the revelation tears through his carefully constructed world, forcing him to confront truths about his own past that he has spent years trying to forget. Suddenly, his obsession with Alicia's case takes on a different dimension, not professional curiosity, but personal survival. The secrets Gabriel died protecting are connected to Theo's own secrets, and Alicia's silence guards not just her own safety, but his as well. The realization that he has been walking into a trap of his own making sends ice through his veins. As the full scope of the conspiracy begins to reveal itself, Theo understands that everyone involved, Gabriel, Paul Rose, the powerful people in the photographs, and even himself, has been playing a deadly game where knowledge equals death and silence equals survival. Alicia saw the whole picture the night she pulled the trigger, understanding that killing Gabriel was the only way to stop a chain of events that would have destroyed countless lives. Her silence since then has been her gift to those who would have suffered if the truth emerged. She became Alcestis not to save her husband, but to save everyone else, sacrificing her voice and her freedom to keep deadly secrets buried in the grave with Gabriel. Now Theo faces an impossible choice: pursue the truth and risk destroying both their lives, or become complicit in Alicia's protective silence and abandon his quest for answers that may be too dangerous to possess. The final therapy session takes place in an atmosphere thick with unspoken understanding. Alicia sits across from Theo, but for the first time in their months together, she looks directly at him. Her eyes hold a mixture of recognition, pity, and something that might be relief. She knows that he knows, and the weight of that shared knowledge transforms the sterile room into a confessional, where sins are acknowledged without words. Theo's hands tremble as he realizes that every question he has asked, every probe into her psyche, has been leading to this moment of mutual recognition. She has been waiting for him to discover what she already knew, that they are both prisoners of the same terrible secret. The truth about that August night crystallizes with devastating clarity. Gabriel had planned to expose the blackmail operation, driven by guilt and a desperate need to cleanse himself of the corruption he had become part of. His final phone calls were not to co-conspirators, but to victims, warning them of what was coming, trying to offer them a chance to prepare for the storm. Alicia overheard those conversations, understood the magnitude of destruction that Gabriel's confession would unleash. She saw the list of names, recognized the powerful people whose lives would be shattered, and made a choice that seemed impossible but felt inevitable. The murder was not premeditated in the traditional sense. It was a spontaneous act born from a moment of terrible clarity. Alicia realized that Gabriel's death would bury the secrets with him, that his silence would be more powerful than his confession. In pulling that trigger, she transformed herself from wife to executioner, from artist to guardian of dangerous truths. Her subsequent silence was not trauma-induced amnesia, but a conscious decision to protect everyone whose names were on Gabriel's list, including the man who now sits across from her. Finally understanding his role in the tragedy, Theo's connection to the conspiracy runs deeper than mere coincidence. His involvement, though peripheral, makes him both witness and accomplice to the web of corruption that ultimately killed Gabriel. The realization that his obsession with Alicia's case was subconsciously driven by his own guilt creates a psychological vertigo that threatens to shatter his remaining sanity. He has spent months trying to break her silence while constructing his own careful lies about his past, his motivations, his marriage to Kathy. Now he sees that Alicia has been protecting him all along. Her refusal to speak shielding him from consequences he never fully understood he faced. The psychological unraveling begins as Theo confronts the mirror that Alicia has held up to his soul. His carefully constructed identity as healer and helper crumbles under the weight of recognition. He is not Alicia's savior, but her fellow victim, not her therapist, but her silent partner in a conspiracy of protective lies. The revelation sends him spiraling through memories he has suppressed, moments of moral compromise that seemed insignificant at the time, but now reveal themselves as stepping stones toward Gabriel's death, his marriage to Kathy, his career, his very sense of self, all built on foundations of selective amnesia and willful blindness. Alicia's artwork takes on prophetic significance as Theo finally understands her visual language. Every painting she has created since the murder has been a coded message, a breadcrumb trail for someone with eyes to see. The bound figure in Alcestis is not just herself, but everyone trapped by the secrets Gabriel tried to expose. The shadowy figures in her recent work are not hallucinations, but memories, faces of people whose lives hang in the balance of her continued silence. Her art has been her confession, her therapy, her way of speaking truths too dangerous for words. The weight of complicity crushes down on Theo as he realizes the full scope of what Alicia has sacrificed to protect him and others. She chose madness over revelation, imprisonment over exposure, silence over the destruction of innocent lives caught in Gabriel's web. Her 6 years at the Grove have been a form of self-imposed exile, a conscious decision to remove herself from the world, rather than poison it with truths too toxic to speak. She has been both martyr and guardian, suffering in silence so that others might live in peace. The other patients at the Grove begin to make sense in this new context. Many are there not because of mental illness, but because they too carry dangerous knowledge, secrets that society would rather lock away than confront. The facility becomes a repository for inconvenient truths, a place where those who know too much are kept safely sedated and silent. Dr. Diomedes' warnings to Theo take on new meaning. He knew exactly what kind of case Alicia represented and tried to protect his newest therapist from the same fate that befell her. As autumn deepens outside the Grove's windows, Theo faces the ultimate therapeutic paradox. To cure Alicia would be to destroy her. To break her silence would be to shatter the protective barrier she has maintained at such personal cost. His professional oath to heal conflicts with the deeper understanding that some wounds are meant to stay closed, some truths too dangerous to emerge into light. The very foundations of his calling are tested as he realizes that sometimes the kindest act is to leave the broken unhealed. The truth emerges not with the dramatic revelation Theo had imagined, but with the quiet devastation of a house of cards, collapsing in slow motion. In his final session with Alicia, she performs an act that shatters everything he thought he understood. She speaks not the flood of confession he had expected, but a single, devastating sentence that turns his entire investigation inside out. The words hang in the air between them like a death sentence, revealing that the greatest deception was not Alicia's silence, but Theo's own carefully constructed amnesia about his role in the tragedy. The ultimate twist cuts deeper than any fictional revelation could. Theo was the anonymous caller who told Gabriel about Kathy's affair, the voice that whispered poison into Gabriel's ear in the days before his death. His own jealousy and rage, masked even from himself, had set the entire tragedy in motion. Gabriel's paranoia, his desperate phone calls, his final attempt to expose the blackmail ring all reactions to learning about his wife's betrayal from a stranger who was no stranger at all. Theo's obsession with Alicia was not professional curiosity, but the subconscious need to confront the consequences of his own vengeful act. Alicia's silence had been protecting him from this truth. Understanding that his fractured psyche could not bear the weight of what he had done, she saw through his selective amnesia, recognized the man who had destroyed her life even as he claimed to want to heal it. Her refusal to speak was an act of mercy toward her husband's killer, not the literal killer who pulled the trigger, but the emotional assassin who had aimed the weapon of truth at Gabriel's heart. The painting Alcestis takes on its final meaning. She chose silence not to die in place of her husband, but to allow Theo to live with his forgotten sins. The revelation destroys Theo completely, shattering the last fragments of his sanity as he finally sees himself clearly. His marriage to Kathy, his career as a healer, his very identity as a good man, all lies built on the foundation of a momentary act of cruelty that he had buried so deeply he forgot it existed. The man who sought to cure silence discovers that he is the reason for that silence, the therapist who is himself the patient most in need of healing. In the end, Alicia's greatest gift to Theo is not speech but understanding. As he crumbles under the weight of recovered memory, she watches with the sad compassion of someone who has carried unbearable truth alone for too long. The grove becomes their shared purgatory, two souls bound together by secrets too terrible to speak, finding in each other's broken silence the only absolution possible. The last image is of them sitting together in complete quiet, no longer doctor and patient, but fellow travelers in the landscape of unforgivable acts, where the only therapy is the acceptance that some wounds never heal, some truths never set you free, and some silences are the kindest lies we tell ourselves to survive.